Hi, my name is Jill Sherman, and I'm CEO, co-founder of Moderator. So a few years ago, I was managing the buying team of a large luxury department store called Harvey Nichols. In case you haven't heard of Harvey Nichols, think of it as the Barneys of Europe. So in order for me to source cool and emerging brands for this store, I spent 4 months of the year on the road. So 4 months, that's 33% of my time, was spent on the road away from my customers just to source brands. Not only was it hard to be the first to market with cool up-and-coming designers, but once I found them, I had a hard time meeting their minimums. So let me explain to you how the market works today and how Moderator resolves these issues. So in the United States today, there are over 300,000 designers, and they're selling to about 5 to 150 stores each. So they already have relationships with manufacturers, suppliers, and they're ready to scale. Problem is, it's a very fragmented market, making it difficult for them to scale beyond their locale. In fact, the average designer is spending around $20,000 a year just to meet the market. So where is this market? Well, believe it or not, they're still going to trade shows. And let's be honest, trade shows kind of suck, right? So in the US alone, there are over 100,000 retailers. They're spending around $230,000 each on their inventory. So that's a $25 billion wholesale opportunity, and at full retail value, that's $60 billion. So clearly there's purchasing power amongst these retailers. The problem is they're still going to these trade shows that happen twice a year, so they're forced to buy these goods before knowing the trends, and they're still faced with these high minimum order requirements. So our solution at Moderator is to take all these designers and put them online and truly revolutionize the physical trade show and showroom experience. Moderator is a curated wholesale marketplace connecting designers and retailers. And we're teaming up the retailers into a group buy to help them reach the minimum order requirements that designers need to go into production. So this means that a store in Phoenix or New York or Los Angeles or in Austin can buy less inventory independently, yet collectively reach the numbers that a designer needs to go into production. So essentially what we're offering is economies of scale. Buyers keep buying what they want, and we aggregate their orders in the back end for them to receive volume-based discounts of up to 15%. And that's a discount which goes straight to the bottom line, and we're the only ones in the market doing it. So what does this mean for retailers? Well, my largest frustration as a buyer was a 6-month biannual selling season where I was forced to buy these goods before knowing the trends. What we're saying at Moderator is that that no longer needs to exist and one doesn't need to buy according to the trade show calendar. In fact, a retailer can take the same budget, chop it up into smaller pieces, try and test more designers, and then reorder based on how it actually performs in the market. So this means more inventory turns with much less financial risk. And in fact, it's much closer to the business models of mammoth companies like H&M and Zara. Now for designers, we built a SaaS platform for them to run their whole wholesale back office operations. So this includes access to thousands of retailers across the world, an efficient way for them to communicate with each other, as well as modify the orders based on what they actually need in real time. And this leaves much more time for designers to focus on what they do best, which is designing, and less time on sales and marketing. So let me give you a sneak preview into the site. The whole site is built from the buyer's perspective, so what you see here already includes the images which the designers have uploaded themselves. We have high-res right background imagery, multiple viewpoints, as well as a lifestyle image. This includes specs on the products, the shipping, returns, and the payment methods. Then one can learn about the designer him or herself, about their bio, the stores they're selling to, their press, as well as the branding imagery. Then all you need to do is put in the quantity that you want, start the group buy, confirm the order. This goes into the group buy section where other stores can then join that order to hit the minimums collectively. The designer then has the opportunity to accept or reject the order, and the retailer has the potential to pay directly through the site. So it's a seamless ordering process. So how do we make money? We don't charge the retailers anything. It's a completely free model for them. We charge the designers between $600 and $1,000 a year, plus a 3.5% commission after year one. This is extremely competitive when you compare it to how they currently reach the market, such as at trade shows, showrooms, and their own personal website. So we've had a lot of interest even before we launched the site. It launched in mid-January. Since then, we've had a 30% customer growth of 30% month over month. And our customers are extremely engaged. The average customer is on the site for nearly 9.5 minutes. If you compare that to a traditional e-commerce site, that's nearly three times the industry average. And in fact, we're already extremely international. We're represented in over 57 countries worldwide. 38% of our retailers are international, and 50% of our orders are international. Now, by international, I mean cross borders. That can be Argentina to China, or even Kuwait to Israel, which is super cool because we're able to break down borders between contentious countries. So let me tell you who the team is. I've been working in the fashion industry for the last 12 years. I was a merchandiser for Prada, a merchant for Harvey Nichols, and a stylist and editor for Vogue magazine. I met my co-founder, Alain Miguel, while studying at MIT. We're both getting our MBAs. He spent 4 years at JP Morgan and was a successful polo designer while an undergrad at Yale. Blue, who looks pretty red here as opposed to blue, spent the last 15 years coding, and Lillian is also hailing from Yale and a designer. So we have this awesome product in the market, and we'd love your help in growing it, and we are raising our seed round financing halfway through, so if any accredited investors are here, please come my way.
I just want to start by giving you a real shout out, Jill, because I saw Jill in the early days of packaging, going through really the mud in a different forum, and you have really come a long way, and good for you. This is beautifully packaged, and because it's complicated, it's in the wholesale world, and it's a unique idea with this group buying, so good for you. Let's see, I guess I'd ask, how are you doing as far as traction on these designers, and how are you getting those?
So we currently have 170 designers on the platform and over 1,100 retailers. We've acquired them through making partnerships throughout the industry. So on the designer side, it's across the supply chain. So it's where they source their fabrics, where they manufacture their products, where they manage their inventory across platforms. And actually, like, the greatest stamp of approval is there are professors at FIT that are actually teaching about us in their curriculum. And we learned about this through the students who came to us. These are master's students, so it's those who have already built their brands and are scaling. So that was pretty exciting. Thank you.
How are you dealing with potential customer dissatisfaction?
In terms of
Inventory, anything.
Sure. So the retailers have the option to request a sample if they want. So if they want to touch and feel the product beforehand, that's something they can absolutely request. There's a lot of communications happening on the site. So designers and retailers have open communication. Once a retailer says they're interested in a designer, it's an open forum for them to discuss it with anything with each other. That includes modifying orders as well as requesting samples. And what we're doing, we're lowering the barrier for the retailers to get involved in orders. So since the minimums are lower, they can try and test more designers and test them with a less smaller financial payment up front. So they can try multiple pieces within one collection and just buy one-offs, and then reorder based on how they actually feel about the product.
Well, what if they're satisfied with the the first one-off, and then with the larger order that there's something goes wrong? I mean, how are you dealing with that service issue?
Sure. So the logistics and returns are all defined by the designer and the retailer, so we actually don't get in the middle of that process. We're processing the order and handing it off to the designer for them to fulfill it and send to the retailer, and any quality issues that happen is between the two of them. We're not in the middle of that process.
Do you source the designers, or are you basically letting this be an open marketplace?
So in terms of the inbound leads and outbound, so we have a ton of inbound leads, so that is why we're raising money, is to ramp up the sales team. And we do push it out a bit, but it's definitely through word of mouth. It's been pretty awesome to communities of designers who are applying, and we'll see, like, 1 week it'll be Dublin, the next week it'll be Toronto, the next week it'll be Lagos, so it's definitely expanding. And we are curating them, so not everybody is accepted onto the platform. I didn't go into categories, so currently we're accessories only. We're launching into apparel in January. And we have a lot of designers on the waiting list for when that happens. But due to the fact that we were limited in our category mix, it's about a 15 to 20% acceptance onto the platform right now. Also, not everybody is qualified. So if you're not fulfilling orders, you don't already have experience with suppliers and manufacturers, then we won't accept you. So we want to ensure that one can fulfill the orders they promise.
How is that price point going over with the designers?
We're testing it, so that's why it's a range between 600 and 1,000. We found with apparel designers we can actually charge higher. With accessories, it's sliding somewhere around 750. If one has fewer products, then we'll go a little bit lower. But it's been favorable. In fact, it's great for the curation aspect. So those who can't afford it then probably don't belong in our marketplace.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Can you describe your social media integration strategy and tactically? For example, how do you plan to use Facebook going forward to connect all of these great markets to
That's a great question. So when we first started, before we had anything live at all, we started with Twitter, just talking about it, and that's what brought in all the interest even before we had a landing page. So we do engage in conversations with customers directly through Twitter, which is great, brings in a lot of interest. Facebook we've actually been exploring a little bit with. So when it comes to our landing page, there are four ways you can sign. You can sign up as 4 different types of people: as a buyer or a retailer, as a designer, as an agent for a showroom, as well as a fan. And what we found is we have a lot of fans signing up. So what we've started to do is trunk shows, and we're hosting them through Facebook. And so these are trunk shows that are offline and offline. So Facebook is where we're starting to push it out to our customers, taking our top selling brands and allowing end consumers to buy off of the trunk shows that we're starting. So it's a way to really push out these independent designers to a pool of people who are already interested. And then we are doing offline trunk shows. So these are retailers who came to us and they're interested in our designers pooling together and having a showcase in their stores. So Thursday, if you guys want to come, there's an awesome trunk show taking place in New Jersey at a boutique called Tula. We have 8 of our designers going there. So that also is a question, answers your question. So we create these opportunities for these relationships to be taken offline, and therefore the stores can really get to know the designers. Designers can get to know their end consumers, and then they can continue purchasing thereafter.
Great. Quick question from the audience? Any questions? All right, go ahead.
Yes, you have both of them talking. What is it why can they actually just like skip you and do the transaction outside the
Oh, I couldn't hear the question.
Can they circumvent you? So can the designer go behind your back and deal with the retailer directly?
Sure, good question. So we're not charging a commission in this first year, right? So this is a great time for us to test out how everything's working. What we saw, actually let me backtrack a little bit. The first 6 months we built to let the designers on for free and charged a commission, and then thereafter we started charging. So what we saw is those who were charging were actually much more active. They upload more products, higher price points, and what they're doing is pushing their orders through the system because they use those orders as leverage to attract more people. And that's the whole beauty of the system, is that it's all about network effects. It's taking this order that's usually a one-on-one relationship between a designer and the retailer and exposing it a bit more so that more people can learn about these designers. So what we see is a store in Kuwait will buy something, a store in San Francisco will join, a store in New York will join, it'll meet the minimum. In fact, it may even meet the wholesale discounts. And so it's beneficial, and everyone can see that because it's an open marketplace. So it's beneficial, and it's exposed to be beneficial through the system that if one pushes the orders, all of their orders through, really uses as a back office operations, and they can then attract much more business.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you everybody for coming. Happy, healthy holidays. We have somebody waving their hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a very general question, which is like, in some of these kinds of businesses, what are the barriers to entry, and are there other people going to follow, and how do you kind of assess that?
How do you protect what you're doing?
Yeah.
Where are my 5 presenters?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have asked it
Does
earlier.
anybody want to tackle that question as to how you create barriers to entry in the market?
Hire Chadbourne.
We're going to go out there and create those barriers. I think that's something you probably can do much better than we do. But real business barriers. Anybody want to tackle that? Any of the presenters? Natalia, you're not a presenter, but go ahead.
It's really 2 ways you can protect these technologies. One is through the technology itself, by creating a technology which either is protected by IP, which limits people from mimicking it, and so that's one form of protection. Another form of protection is what we call network effects, which is just having the most people on your site and using your product, and that essentially limits other competitors from coming in, because the bigger you are, the harder it is for other people to compete.
Yeah, that's the market share play. So on the IP side, I'm going to just open the question up to the investors on the panel for a moment. IP, you have several different ways of protecting. One way is clearly a patent. You can get your technology patented if it's the type of technology that is patentable. If you would prefer not to have it out in the public, you can black box it so it becomes a trade secret. There are, at some stages of development, VCs that place high value on patents. especially in the life science space.
Well, I'm in the life sciences space. That's why I was
So
sort of
there's
puzzled about this,
There's a very high value placed on patents in
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
Less so in different spaces. So Jean is nodding her head. You want to jump in there?
No doubt, you're right, Lori, and certainly listen to it. It can be a shield or a sword, but boy, it's expensive to litigate, you know. On the other hand, it does set up some interesting, a very good, let's say, treasure chest, so to speak, which is an asset. But to your good point, one of the best answers around this is run faster
Yeah,
than the
market
next
share.
person.
Market share is always
Yeah.
the key. You could also, just from a very practical standpoint, you can always file, if you want to do a patent, but you don't have a big pocketbook, you can always file a provisional. Provisional is very cheap. It'll cost you less than $5,000. It's a placeholder. It gets you a date. Provisional patent application. You have a year to convert it into a full-blown utility patent. So that's always a possibility. The market share is also, you know, grabbing market share, I think, is often one of the biggest barriers to entry for companies.
Yep.
Any other last words here? All right, we have another. Go ahead.
I would just argue your best defense is having a superior product and keeping it superior.
Yes. Yeah.
That you will be imitated.
Switching costs.
It's true.
All you do is say
Oh, switching costs.
Yeah, with the
Really
superior
only
product. It's very
first
true.
mover advantage, I think, has been proven also to be temporary.
Many times you find companies that find themselves competing against others that have better funding sources. So you need to be creative in that space. It's, you know, whatever you can do to get market share. Maybe it is spending a little bit of money on a patent portfolio if at some point you see you're going to pursue it. But I like the practical idea of really grabbing as much market as you can. So happy, healthy holidays, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thank you to my amazing
Can I just say, I want to applaud everybody for identifying a need and addressing it. And it takes a lot of courage to get up here and do what you did and build what you built. So pat yourselves on the back, all presenters.
Yeah, and thank you, sponsors.
Send me your